welcome to Catherine's Garden and Home. Yes, and someone is waiting. Sorry to have you waiting, but I'm so glad that you're there. Thank you for coming on and being with me here at Catherine's Garden and Home. My name is Catherine, and it is so good to be with you here today on this Wednesday evening here in my Zone 6 garden in the Northeast. I'm in the Boston area, and I'm actually in a neighborhood of Boston, and I'm just very happy to be here with you today, and I'm glad that you've come in to be a part of this um, chat. So please introduce yourself in the chat, and let us have a discussion and chat about the season and how things are going for you. And I was thinking about this. This is the topic that I was thinking of: ways to save time in the garden during the harvest season. And there's so much happening in the garden, but also I find that it has been raining a lot in my area. And so the time that I would have had to be out in the garden and to work the garden is not there. There are days where the rains and it's just rainy and miserable. And along with it being rainy, it is also cool. As you can see, I have on my sweater, my hoodie, as well as my jacket because it's cool. It's cool out here. The other thing is that the other issue that we have here is that the time, it's now getting darker earlier, and so to be able to do gardening in the afternoon, it's a little more difficult because the sun's going to go down sooner than it did before. We were able to hang out in the garden all the way until 8, 8:30 sometimes, and it was great. But now that the time is changing, it's taking longer. Um, you know, it, it's not taking long. It's actually shorter. The time is shorter, and it's taking longer for the sun to come up, and the sun is going down quickly. So there's less time in the garden. That morning time, that if you're a morning gardener, it's shorter. And if you're an afternoon gardener, it's shorter too. So it is a matter of finding the right time and finding ways to be more efficient during this time in the garden because it's being eaten up by so many different things. Also, the season has changed too. We're now in autumn. The autumnal times are here with the changing of the leaves. And I gathered my different assortment of pumpkin and squash here, just to make the place look a little more, my table look a little more festive here. Whenever I see the pumpkins, the squash, the butternut squash, this is actually the first butternut squash that I've picked for today. Um, I don't think I picked one. I think my husband picked one early, but that was a while back. But now I have to gather my squash. So all of this has to happen now. So how do we make it more easy for us, more efficient? And that's the question. So ways to save time in the garden during this harvest season. And today I also went out and I ended up harvesting all of these beautiful peppers. This has been like my third time or fourth time really harvesting a lot of peppers. I think that it's had like it's just been so good throughout the season, that I've had multiple harvesting of peppers. So I'm so happy. Yes, I had to show off my peppers. I actually used it in my cooking today. I made an omelet with peppers and some onions and some dinosaur kale that I had cut up and with some onions, and created an omelet with a tortilla, those tortilla patties, and it was good. My daughter says, "Mom, you're making a quesadilla?" It was really, really nice. Sonia, I think you are on with me. How are you today? Sonia, hello, Miss Catherine. How are you? I'm doing good. Wow, what a nice harvest. I need to know of ways to save time. Yes, and actually, this idea came up by Ava. She left some good questions. And last time we talked about composting, and another question she had, any tips on saving time in the garden? And so I decided that we will incorporate that question in our talk today because I don't know about you, but I am busy trying to figure out how am I going to harvest in everything and how am I going to do it effectively and efficiently. So, yeah, I think it's a great topic and it's something that we can all contribute to. So, if you have any suggestions, leave your tips and share it in the chat. Introduce yourself, join us in the conversation, and leave your suggestions in the chat. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, Sonia, one of the things that I think that's most important because we have all of these time constraints on us that it's easy to forget about going into the garden every single day. Yeah, it may be raining, but when the rain stops, run out there, give it a quick walk around, take a quick look at your garden and see what is about to be ripened, what is about to be ready for harvesting, and then plan, well, the next day or later on that day, I'm going to go in and I'm going to um, get some things uh, ready for harvesting. Gardens, hello, Miss Catherine and garden friends. Hello, how are you? How are you? Welcome to our Wednesday chat. Yeah, so one of the things to do, ways to save time in gardening during the harvest season, is to not go into the garden. At least, even if it's for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, go in there, survey the land, look around the garden, see how things are developing, and think about what you want to harvest, what's ready for harvesting. So staying on top of it. And I know that anytime I neglect looking at the harvest or even just checking out where I planted my food, that things happen. And that is what has happened to me at times. That I know, like with the cucumbers, like I planted cucumbers in certain parts of the garden, and I really didn't remember or didn't look to check. I would check, but I wouldn't check on a regular basis. And I ended up losing a lot of my cucumbers, especially the pickling kind, over by the herbal garden because it was just so full. I did plant thickly, and with the cucumbers, I should have trellised them up so that I could observe them a little bit better. I did that with the tomatoes, and so I was able to see when they were ripening and able to harvest them as I would go along. And then where I placed the tomatoes, I was walking by there pretty much every single day to get to other parts of the garden. So I would notice, well, oh, I need to harvest this tomato. I need to gather that. And then the other thing, a way to make things easy for yourself too, is to walk out when you're going in the garden, to take with you a small basket. Like sometimes I would walk with this container, and I that's what I did. I walked out. I was going to look at the garden and try to also see what I wanted to pick, and I was actually going to harvest kale for my dinner. I also had an abundance of cucumbers that turned yellow on the vines. Yes, that's exactly what happened to me too. But I said, no, I'm not going to lose out on these. So instead of picking or gathering some kale, instead I decided to go and check on my peppers. And it was a good thing because look at how large they were getting. And the next thing you know, slugs would eat them. And I've been finding too, especially with my green peppers, that the slugs seem to love them. And if I don't pick them at a certain time, what that they would end up getting holes. So this is not necessarily the size that I would have wanted my green peppers to be. I would have wanted them to be a little bit bigger, but because I want to beat the slugs before they bore into, because the larger the skin of the pepper becomes, the more thinner it becomes, and the slugs are able to bore into it, and then it's no good. Uh, but I don't mind it like this because it's crispy, and it's been raining a lot here in my neighborhood, so that when I cut these peppers, they are so watery and moist, and then you could smell the pepper. So if I'm using them right away or storing them in the freezer right away or refrigerator right away, then they will stay fresh. And what I've been doing is actually bagging them up, rinsing them off, bagging them up, and putting them in the freezer so that I can have them for stews and cooking for the winter months. And so between refrigerator is filled, the freezer section as well as the refrigerator section, and the thing is that the things that I put in the refrigerator, I have to make sure that I use them, right away, because other than that, they become soggy after a while. And there's such an abundance. I don't know about you, but has been such an abundance of certain produce, like the peppers, like the kale, like the tomatoes, those little cherry tomatoes. And now with the rain, if I am not going through there and picking them, even though they might be a little lost, I lost out on all my pepper plants that I started from seed. Those bunnies ate all of my tender plants in spring. Oh, Garden Army. Oh, well, you are a little bit wiser now. You know they're coming, so you next year prepare for them, so they do not get your produce. Mm. Do what you got to do to stop the bunnies from getting your harvest. You're having problems with bunnies too, Sonia? Oh, I don't have bunny problems. I'm ready for them. That's good. That's good. That's good. Oh, I see that other people on. Um, Come on and introduce yourself and join us here in the chat. My name is Catherine, and you're here at Catherine's Garden and Home. And we're just having a little conversation on ways to save time in the garden during this harvest season. And so if you have any suggestions or tips, that things that you've done, leave it in the comments section. Leave it there, and we will share it with everyone. Uh, so, so it is important, and I know that I have not been. I've been going out every time, um, but there are times when I missed things. But now I'm really trying to be on it, because here in the New England area, here in the Boston area, the temperatures are dropping. I think for this week, the temperatures are going down into the 50s, like the low 50s, like 51, 52 at night. And then during the day, it's like 68, maybe hitting 70 in the sun. Yes, Miss Sonia, they are out in full force this season. Oh, yes. So, you just got to deal with those bunnies. But there are other pests. I found now, because of all of the rain that we've been experiencing, that I've been experiencing slugs. Those little squirmy things? And they like my peppers. They do like the peppers. And I noticed too that they have been eating and chewing on. Yes, my cat is even scared. Oh my goodness, Sonia. Your cat is scared of the bunnies? Wow. Are they big? They must be a good size. It's probably the mother bunny and all her little babies, her little bunnies. Oh my goodness. I did not juice up my my phone. All of a sudden it says that the battery's low. But anyway, we'll work this as long as we can. Um, so ways to save time in the garden during the harvest season is going out, checking your garden daily for ripening produce, and then also picking them when they're slightly, they might not be full size, but picking them when they're small, like this, so that you don't lose them. And then be gentle so that your fruit will not bruise. Now is the time to really be careful that you don't try to pile in too many fruit and that they end up rubbing up against one another and bruising, because then they won't last that long, especially for like the squash and so forth. Certain squash are a little more tender. Like for example, my patty pans, they're a little more tender and they can bruise easier because you want them to last for a while. Like these pumpkins, I've let it stay on the vine pretty much. I've cut a lot of stem here and I let it get to a nice color, and it will last for a while. Um, and giving it that time is so important. But pick certain fruits small, like your zucchini, like your summer squash. Bunnies aren't too big, but they're fast. Oh, okay. um, the more you are, the more that you pick, the more that you'll have. Rambo, hello, Miss Catherine. This is a hi and a bye, Miss Catherine. Couldn't I show support as always? Oh, thank you. You come to show support. Thank you so much, Rambo. So good to have you here. Yeah, welcome. And we're talking about ways to save time in the garden during the harvest season. Yeah, so we want to make sure that we are picking and staying engaged in our garden, not allowing it to fall apart. And I'm talking to myself as well, because when it gets a little cold, it's hard to get out. You know, you're not as drawn. But I'm going to be having some really good weather in the next couple of days. It's going to be cool and sunny instead of rainy and damp. So these are the times to get out there, and especially now too, because just with all this rain too, you want to catch your fruit before they rot. Yeah. So be gentle. Use large enough baskets. Harvest easier and also avoid bruising. When you are out there, make sure that you have a large enough container. You know, that will help. Yankee, sister. Hi, Kathy. Just stopping in to say hello. I have Bible study, so I'll watch the replay. How are you, Yankee, sister? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yay! I appreciate the um, the gifting. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's wonderful. And yes, Bible study is good. And one of the other things that I want to say, ways to save time in the garden during the harvest season, is hello. How are you? Rachel, how are you? I'm watching and sewing. Yes. When you are in the garden, just keep up. Don't get overwhelmed. You're great. That's good. Don't get overwhelmed, but stay thankful. That's the thing, because you can look at it when you see some of your vegetables going to waste and so forth, or when you are going through the garden, you could become a little discouraged, especially if the rabbits have eaten something, or you have other critters that come in and steal your harvest. Like for me, it would be the squirrels. Then you have to still have an attitude of gratitude to go out there and pick and be consistent about it. Don't give up. Go on out there and enjoy your garden. Yeah, so be thankful. Thankfulness is good. And I was looking through my feed, and Urban Girl Gardener Kiki, you know, she wrote this. She had a little saying: the more you are thankful, the more you attract things to be thankful for. Yeah, so the more you are thankful, the more you attract things to be thankful for. And that's courtesy of urban girl gardening Kiki. She said that. So I wanted to share that too, because ways to save time in the garden during the harvest season. Sonia, oh, thank you, sweetness. I appreciate your generosity. Oh, wow. Yes, I appreciate your generosity. Thank you, Rambo. Yeah, these pumpkins came from the seed. I had a pumpkin that I had gotten from I had seed that I had gotten the year before from the Dollar Tree. I planted it, and the pumpkin lasted a long time. It lasted so long, all the way up until April. And I think I have a lot of videos on that. And then my husband threw out the seed during the, thank you, honey, during the compost into the compost pile, and there where the compost was, where we had dumped compost, and so that soil was really good. So the seeds started to germinate and produce really good seedlings. I then transplanted those seedlings in different parts of the garden. And this is from up over by the Jewel Garden. These two pumpkins came from that area. And it is such a blessing. I have a third one too as well. And then there's another green one developing. But if you have pumpkins or squash, this is a butternut squash. If you have these, save your seeds and plant them out next year. They will be viable. They will grow, and you can have pumpkins. So that's what this is from. My Dollar Tree seeds, and this is my pumpkin from the pumpkin that I grew last